This is the Legal Survival Show, and this is James Hirsen, your host each week at this time on KBRT 740 AM. You know this show is a different kind of talk show, and I appreciate all of you tuning in each and every week where we explore topics that deal with the law, but topics that are very important to your family, your property, your faith, your assets, your life. And look, I mean, we're not looking for clients like a lot of other talk shows, legal shows. This is a public service of a nonprofit entity, and you will find on our website at legalsurvivalshow.com or legalsurvival.org. You can go to the website, and you'll find all kinds of useful information for free. And what we're trying to do is bring you general information. Even though I'm a lawyer, I'm a law professor, that we want to give you general important information and understanding of legal principles. There's no attorney-client relationship being created or sought here. And you know this, no radio show is ever a substitute for the advice you would get from a licensed professional attorney in your state or in your area. So what we're going to try to do is protect your freedom. And I'll tell you what, coming up on this show is a show not to be missed. Now, I, James Hirsen, have told you many times there's a show not to be missed, but this one is in particular not to be missed. We're talking about the events most recently that occurred in Cyprus. And if you haven't heard about this, it's not been covered very much by the mainstream media. But in Cyprus, we have people that have just awakened one morning and found out that the government is taking huge amounts of money that are in their bank accounts that they thought, essentially, these people thought were safely deposited in accounts. The original proposal that Cyprus had, the first proposal, was going to violate Cyprus's equivalent of the kind of insurance that we have here in the United States that protects our accounts up to a certain level. And the reason I mention that is coming up later in the show, we're going to talk about very important information concerning our insurance, changes that are coming, and things that you have to be aware of to take the right steps to protect money that's in the bank. Okay, but it's important for us to pay attention what goes on overseas and to know what's going on in what is called the Eurozone, the European Union, because the European Union now is a governmental entity. Didn't we hear about that before somewhere in Scripture? This idea of kind of a joining together of sovereign nations. Well, that's what's happening. And it's the Eurozone that has created the story today about a so-called bailout, another word we've heard a lot before. So that's coming up in the next segment here on the Legal Survival Show. And by the way, if you have a question about this, you have a thought, a concern, please leave a message toll-free on our toll-free message line, or if you'd like to support the show, it's toll-free 888-260-4460. That's toll-free 888-260-4460. You can send me an email, askjames@legalsurvival.org. askjames@legalsurvival.org. By the way, you can visit a website, legalsurvivalshow.com. That's so easy to remember. legalsurvivalshow.com. This is James Hirsen for the Legal Survival Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
James Hirsen will be right back with more of the Legal Survival Show. You can help keep the vital information of the Legal Survival Show on the air. This show is a public service of the nonprofit Justice and Freedom Fund. We want you to have the access to the best information that's necessary to make informed decisions for yourselves and your families. Please help support this different kind of talk show designed to help you with the must-have tools you need to protect your family, finances, property, privacy, and freedom. Please visit the website at legalsurvival.org and click the tab at the top of the page that says Donate. You can make a one-time donation or become a regular supporter, and of course any help you provide is greatly appreciated. And check the site often for special free gifts. That's legalsurvival.org. Please help us continue to bring the show into your homes and workplace by visiting legalsurvival.org, or if you prefer, you can call toll-free 888-260-4460. That's 888-260-4460. 888-260-4460.
We're back, the Legal Survival Show. This is James Hirsen, and as I promised, we're going to talk about the events in Cyprus because you need to know
what's happening out there.
Yeah, you know, we live an insulated life here in the United States. I mean, things still, with all of our problems, life is good here for most people. There are a lot of people who are suffering or they're unemployed, but people don't realize the kind of thing that is going on. I mean, imagine that you just wake up in the morning and you find out, now listen to this number, as much as 40% of the savings that you've put in the bank has been taken. They use the word seized. Well, that's what governments say when they steal. Seized without your consent, without any notice, without any due process. This is part of a bailout because the government, in this case it's Cyprus, is close to bankruptcy. And because Cyprus is in the European Unions, the depositors, the wealthy depositors. Remember, they always start with the wealthy, don't they? They woke up on Monday morning, just this last Monday, to hear that European Union officials had accepted a last-minute deal that was offered by the nation's lawmakers to have a bailout, which involved $13 billion. In American terms, you know, we don't use billion with a B anymore. We use trillions now here in America. But this deal, which was dealing with bloated banks, it came at a time that the Euro ministers in Brussels, they're located in Belgium, were going to cut off emergency assistance to Cyprus, to their banks, on that very day, on Monday, if no agreement was reached. And the banks, without the EU, would have collapsed. Well, we're going to find out one of those banks did. I mean, this is a situation where the European Union that use the currency denomination euro was in jeopardy, which is why the EU governance was involved, including a finance minister named Michalis Saris, who said this comment.
It's not that we won a battle, but we really have avoided a disastrous exit from the Eurozone.
So, in order to avoid this disaster to the euro and to the European Union, what they've done is take property that belonged to ordinary citizens. And by the way, this deal, this bailout, has angered the leaders of Russia. Why? Because many of the largest accounts in Cyprus belong to Russians, to Russian depositors. Moscow's been a major lender to prop up the Cypriot banking system. As a matter of fact, the estimates are the Russians have more than $31 billion deposited in Cyprus banks. They're one of the largest depositors. So, but who's affected? Well, listen to this soundbite from CBS News to get a summary.
Savers holding more than $130,000 in Cypriot banks could have up to 40% of their money seized by the government. It has to find $7.5 billion in order to get that bailout. And 2 failing banks are being shut down with big losses to their lenders and big depositors.
Yeah, we'll talk about the banks being shut down in a moment. But doesn't that sound like something some fiction writer would make up? Up to 40% of the money, if you're a citizen who has more, by the way, $130,000, that's the, using the currency exchange, it's 100,000 in euros. But you thought, okay, I have an account, it has my 401k money in it in Cyprus, and you wake up 40%? Now, look, they're calling this a tax, by the way. No notice, a tax. The president of Russia, Medvedev, likened this deal to stealing. They're stealing what has already been stolen. Vladimir Lenin's explanation of the Bolshevik seizure of capitalist assets in property he's using as a reference. Vladimir Putin is involved in this. And so, we're looking at something that scares us. And in addition, there's a bank in Cyprus, the largest bank in Cyprus. I'm sorry, it's the second largest bank, that it's going to be restructured, and people, again, the wealthy, who have more than 100,000 euros in their accounts, are going to face incredible business losses. In the meantime, though, when we talk about the wealthy, what about people that, same thing as in our country, who are classified as wealthy, but they operate small businesses? Well, there is a British lady who had a small business who was interviewed by CBS. Take a listen.
What's it going to do to small and medium-sized businesses? They will contract. They will have to lay people off, or they'll have to cut wages. There will be job losses. I think we're heading into probably 3 or 4 or maybe more years of very, very tough times.
And that's the take of a small business owner from Britain who relocated to Cyprus. And, I mean, this will cause, in addition to the fact that it'll cause job loss in small businesses in general, just imagine the financial sector. I mean, one of the big businesses in Cyprus was their banking system. The people sheltered their money. Cyprus was kind of like the Cayman Islands. It was a tax shelter place, which is why they had so much foreign deposit, why they had so much Russian money. And it's typical of the way people in government think of solutions, which is a very short-term thinking without regard to what it does to the psychology of people, to whether they're going to behave in a way that creates prosperity or not. And as I mentioned, the country's second largest bank is essentially going to be shut down. But we talk about the small businesses. Another example of someone is a Cyprus TV station owner.
We're now creating 2 different types of groups of people here in Cyprus. Ones that have taken a big hit, whilst everybody else has got the money and other banks get away with it.
And this idea of dividing people and creating class envy ultimately leads to this kind of really strange and really sick result where, in effect, stealing is not only condoned, but is a policy of government. And this bank that went under, those that have deposits that are over the insured level, to the extent that they have money over the insured level, guess how much they will lose? 100% of that money. Listen to a Wall Street Journal correspondent on this issue.
That means anybody with deposits over 100,000 euros, kind of like the FDIC in the U.S., Europe has a much more informal, frankly, system of deposit insurance that says small depositors, people have 100,000 euros or less in the bank, you are not going to get hurt. Your money in the bank is safe. This is a step back from what happened last weekend, where they decided, in fact, to take a tax out of even those small depositors. That was widely viewed as a terrible idea, probably one of the worst ideas that anybody's come up with during the Euro crisis. They went back on that and they said, you know what, we're just going to hit the large depositors. And what they're essentially going to do is close down one of the banks. So the bank has made a bunch of loans. The loans and investments have gone bad. The depositors are simply going to be cut off, and they will be repaid over time from the proceeds, whatever they can squeeze out of those loans. So it's a liquidation, a bankruptcy of one of the banks, and that means depositors are left holding the bag.
And those depositors, when they're talking about squeezing something out of loans, that means pennies on the dollar, if anything at all, in a bank liquidation like that. So banks shutting down, bringing up the subject of insurance, and that is where we will explore and where we will begin in the next segment of the Legal Survival Show. Don't go away. This is James Hirsen with the Legal Survival Show, and if you have a question or comment, you can call toll-free 888-260-4460. That's toll-free 888-260-4460. We'll be right back after this message.
Don't forget to visit LegalSurvival.org. James Hirsen will be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Please help keep the Legal Survival Show on the air. This radio program is a public service of the nonprofit Justice and Freedom Fund. If you appreciate what you're hearing, visit the website LegalSurvival.org and click on the tab at the top of the page that says Donate. You can make a one-time donation or become a regular supporter. And of course, any help you can provide is greatly appreciated. Check the sites often for special free gifts as well. Help us continue bringing the show into your home and workplace by visiting LegalSurvival.org. You can also call toll-free 888-260-4460. That's 888-260-4460.
And this is James Hirsen with your Legal Survival Show. Our number for questions or comments is toll-free 888-260-4460. That's toll-free 888-260-4460. And we've been talking about something that it's amazing. I mean, I've already received some messages from people that don't believe this, but it really is part of the bailout in Cyprus that appears to be that they're going to be taking up to as much as 40% of the money of private citizens and businesses who have more than 100,000 euros in their bank account in Cyprus. Just take the money. And 100,000 euros is $130,000. And it's just, it's so astounding. And a kind of a quick summation of our last segment comes in this CBS report.
Savers holding more than $130,000 in Cypriot banks could have up to 40% of their money seized by the government. It has to find $7.5 billion in order to get that bailout. And 2 failing banks are being shut down with big losses to their lenders and big depositors.
And what this is, it's anything over the $130,000, because 100,000 euros, which is $130,000, is in fact insured. And that's also the number when we look at the bank that is failing or being closed down. They're all failing. but being closed down, being liquidated in Cyprus, the second largest bank in Cyprus, people who have money in the bank that where their deposits exceed $130,000, the money above $130,000 is not insured. They will lose all of it. All of it. So that leads to a question. And it's the question that I'm sure, as you were listening to the previous segment, you were asking yourself. And the question is, could it happen here? Well, here's a Wall Street Journal correspondent responding to that very question.
Well, I think the larger fear is, frankly, for Europe, where the deposit protections are much less formalized than they are in the United States. In the United States, the FDIC has been around for a very long time. Depending on precisely how you construe the FDIC's authority, it essentially is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. And if the FDIC goes in and closes down a bank and promises to pay depositors who are insured up to the insurance limit, it's a pretty good bet that the FDIC is actually going to do that. It's never not done that, it is backed by the United States government, which is a lot different than being backed by the Cypriot government. The Cypriot government has a much less formal deposit insurance structure. That's the same with most European countries. The deposit insurance is kind of a vague promise that is rarely, if ever, tested.
You know, he is right. This correspondent is correct that the FDIC is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. And when you open an account, you often hear this. Well, the deposits here are insured by the FDIC up to X, which leads to a question. What is FDIC deposit insurance?
What does that mean?
Yes, we ask it all the time here on the Legal Survival Show. And this time what we're defining is FDIC deposit insurance. And as we mentioned, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, but even the correspondent from the Wall Street Journal said it's a pretty good bet. I don't want to hear pretty good bet. I mean, the United States has never failed to honor federal deposit insurance. But we see the United States government doing things we never thought that they would. But the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is an independent agency of the United States government. It is set up to protect your money that you place in banks and savings and loan associations, federally chartered kinds of deposits. And it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. And since it was established, this goes back to 1933, there's not any depositor who's ever lost a penny of the insured funds. But guess what? A lot of people put their money in banks and they don't know what the levels of insurance are. Back in when we had the financial crisis that took place in 2009, we changed the insurance amounts. And a lot of people are confused. They say, well, it's covered up to $250,000, isn't it? And you go to the bank, they say, well, no, it's covered up to $500,000. Here's the rules currently. It is in an account that has more than one owner. So say if you're married and you have an account where both you and your wife or you and your husband are listed as owners, your insurance level is $250,000 per owner. If you have two or more persons on the account, it's $250,000 per owner, per bank. So if you have 5 accounts in that bank, it's the aggregate of that money. So the $250,000 for most married couples that have community property, they typically put their money in joint accounts, and they would have $500,000 in protection. Very important information. And it's information I just don't see anybody talking about this. That's why we bring you the Legal Survival show. We live in a time of a need to survive. We live in a time of a need to know things that maybe aren't appearing in our newspaper, we're not hearing on broadcasts, mainstream media broadcasts. We're not even seeing on mainstream media websites. We have this need. So I urge you to go to our website at legalsurvivalshow.com, legalsurvivalshow.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can go there. You'll see places to click to support with PayPal and the like. But you can call us and let us know you want to support us at 888-260-4460, toll free 888-260-4460, because this is the kind of information you need to know. As a matter of fact, we will have some information up on the website dealing with this FDIC deposit insurance info. This is James Hirsen with the Legal Survival Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's the Legal Survival Show with James Hirsen. James Hirsen.
Please help keep the Legal Survival Show on the air. This radio program is a public service of the nonprofit Justice and Freedom Fund. If you appreciate what you're hearing, visit the website legalsurvival.org and click on the tab at the top of the page that says Donate. You can make a one-time donation or become a regular supporter. And of course, any help you can provide is greatly appreciated. Check the sites often for special free gifts as well. Help us continue bringing the show into your home and workplace by visiting legalsurvival.org. You can also call toll-free 888-260-4460. That's 888-260-4460.
This is James Hirsen with the Legal Survival Show, and it was great that all of you tuned in and could hear this valuable information about what's happening in banking overseas and what you need to do with your family. We'll be here each week at this time. If you have questions or comments, you can call toll-free 888-260-4460. That's toll-free 888-260-4460. Leave a message. You can also visit legalsurvivalshow.com, because each week we'll be here bringing you justice with a capital J.